On today's episode,
he's going to tell you that he's never done anything with his life, but those are all lies. Former NFL football player Joe Donnelly. You have a career-ending injury. From the absolute ashes of despair, you rise up.
People thought that I had just hit rock bottom. I mean, I literally had $12 to my name.
I think everyone's initial reaction to failure is to deflect, point fingers at other people.
Absolutely. There's no more freeing moment in your life when you can hear something said about you and completely dismiss it. You're either the CEO of your life or you're going to be life's employee.
It's time to go inside Quest with host Tom Bilyeu, president and co-founder of the second fastest growing private company in America. And now he's uncovering the universal principles of success.
I can tell you right now what principle number one is. Follow your passion.
Inside Quest starts right now.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Inside Quest. Our goal here is to be the intellectual equivalent of taking the red pill from the Matrix. Our guest today is somebody incredibly interesting to me. He's going to tell you that he's never done anything with his life, but those are all lies, but I'll give him a chance to defend his position. But my position goes something like this. Facts. The man is a former NFL football player. Just to get to that point in your career takes a tremendous amount of dedication and discipline over years and years and years. And we're going to talk about some of the early struggles that he had. He's also a fitness model, or in my case, I would consider him a fitness role model because he's very much someone that's out there putting out the truth, trying to inspire and motivate people to action rather than just puff them up. And he's an entrepreneur. I have had the very good fortune of spending time with Joe off camera. It was an incredible meeting, and I would say that when we met, entrepreneurial sparks were flying.
Absolutely.
At least that's how it felt for me. And in fact, after that meeting, one of the guys that was sitting in said, "Man, we should have recorded that." I couldn't agree more, so that's why we're here today. So everybody, please help me in welcoming Joe Donnelly.
Thank you.
My pleasure, man.
Thank you.
All right, so I know that you show up to the gym ready for war. You say you attack the weights and try to take yourself to the edge of insanity. If I hadn't seen your workouts, then I might sort of downgrade that in my mind, but I've seen them, so I know that that really is true. So I'm not gonna softball any questions to you today, no underhand pitches.
I didn't expect you.
We're gonna jump right into it. Michael Jordan has a very famous quote, and he said, "I have failed time and time again in my life, and that's why I succeed." Like you, that's a guy that's totally introspective. He's looking at himself. He's trying to learn from his lessons. But you didn't always. You used to blame other people for your failings, but not anymore.
Correct.
So tell us what changed.
I had a shot to play in the NFL, and at one point things didn't work out. But rather than accept personal accountability for why things didn't work out, or maybe a relationship didn't work out, or a job, or whatever, we often point the finger. And you'll see it, it's very common in today's society. I've even caught myself at sometimes. When things didn't happen, maybe you want to mentally, point the finger at someone else, or this is why this didn't happen. And I have to catch myself and reassign blame, because the minute you're deflecting, the minute you're redirecting in someone else's direction, all you've done is mask an insecurity in yourself, and you've taken a fear of the realization that the shortcomings lied with you, and try to cover it up. And like I told you, that fear is like a burning fire, a small fire. And the minute that you refuse to address it, all you're doing is you're putting wood on it, you're pouring gasoline.
Yeah, so the quote that I read in your pre-interview was just too good not to get, just the way you said it. Fear is like a small fire, and time is the wood.
Time is the wood, absolutely.
I love that.
Yep.
Talk about what happens to that fire if you turn your back on it.
I mean, literally, in life, I always tell people that the minute you recognize a fear, whether it's public speaking or maybe jumping out of an airplane, whatever it is, if you don't immediately take steps to address it, that fear is going to grow. And day by day, hour by hour, till at some point it's going to be, that fear was small at one point, but now it becomes insurmountable, and you've developed a psychological block against it. Whereas before, if you just stepped outside of your comfort zone and addressed it, you could have attempted to conquer it. Because really, facing your fear is conquering it. You don't have to, become a life champion and become a professional skydiver. You just have to address it. And then many times you'll find that it's not as scary as I thought it was. You get up in front of a crowd and public speak. You may be awful at it, but so what? Who cares? Right. You can only start at rock bottom and get better from there. Every day you let it go by, that fear festers, it grows. More time, more wood is poured on that fire, and it grows. I've seen people literally go into panic attacks all because it's built up over time, your opportunity then to move forward and self-generate success, when you have a giant wall in front of you, it's almost impossible. You've put yourself against odds that are basically shackling you and crippling you and paralyzing you to try to move anywhere forward in life and create success.
Are you familiar with the concept of the psychological immune system?
I am, yes.
So fascinating theory. I don't know if you read about it in the marshmallow test. He goes into a ton of detail about sort of its function. So I try to look at everything from an evolutionary standpoint, right? How did we get here? Because once I understand the underground mechanism in the brain, right? Because so much what happens in your brain is subconscious. Once I understand the subconscious thing that's driving behavior, then you can actually address it and control it. I think everyone's initial reaction to failure is the same as it was for you, the same as it certainly was for me, and that's to deflect, point fingers at other people.
Absolutely.
Which is actually awesome. So from a psychological immune system standpoint, to never have to erode your sense of self-confidence because, hey, you never make a mistake, look at that, how amazing. But the thing that I guess evolution didn't take into account is you stagnate. So you just stop. If nothing's ever your fault, you're not in control, you're the victim of external things, so now you can't move forward. What was the realization that made you go, this has stagnated me, I can't move forward, I have to accept this in order to change?
I wasn't enjoying what it is I was doing. I wasn't contributing in any way to society or people's lives.
What part of your success are we at this point?
This is probably into my late 20s at this point. You know, so I mean, after football and went on to graduate school and got into business. But it was literally getting up every day and going to work and it was just generating wealth and.
That was your goal. You were chasing money, essentially.
I didn't even know it was my goal. I just felt like that's kind of the direction I was supposed to go in. I never took the time to self-assess. What is it I really wanted to do, or what do I really want to get out of life? And I woke up one day, and I had been masking, I guess, maybe depression, if you want to say. You know, I'd always felt that I was a good motivator of people, inspiring teammates, people around me. You know, even when I was in college, and I wasn't giving back. I wasn't doing anything in any way. The more I thought about it, the more it burned inside of me.
What was it, though, in that scenario?
That I knew I needed to do something different. That I knew that I needed to change the course of my life. And I know it sounds cliche. People say it all the time. They want to give back or they want to affect people.
It doesn't sound cliche or corny to me at all, because I understand what you mean, but so everybody in the audience, my biggest fear, they're beautiful human beings. I know each and every one of them, some to a greater, some to a lesser degree, but I know them. They're here at the company.
Yep.
My whole pitch to them is you should be a Quest for the exact number of days that it's moving you towards your goals. Right. The second it's not, you should leave and go somewhere else. And the thing that really scares me, and the reason I want to get really specific about what you were doing, when you start having these pangs in your stomach that something is wrong, and then how you ultimately learn to self-assess, because I want them to have that skill set. My fear is that many of them will stay longer than that we're moving, not comfort, that we're moving them towards our goals, right? And then it becomes they're trapped by chasing money, right? So let's just take it step by step. We'll get into some of the heartache. Let's not talk about that for now, but you're in the NFL. It doesn't work out. We're going to talk extensively about that. You start a mentorship essentially in the warehouse. That's a story we'll go deep into. But now, so from that moment moving forward, you're chasing money, which is most people's goal. It's their lifelong fantasy, right? Is to be on a path towards wealth. When do you start to realize, whoa, this actually isn't what I thought it would be?
Well, you can be motivated to get in shape or to, you know, I don't know, have a nice car or work hard enough to have a nice house or whatever those things. Intrinsic motivation is the summer days when your friends are at the beach. What's going to get you up and drag you out of the house at 6 a.m. and into the track, into the hills, and when it's 110 degrees and there's no one around watching you, there's no one around seeing you work, and you're running hills and you're doing all things that nobody else is doing, and you know you could probably get by. You already have a college scholarship in hand, but you're doing it because you're holding yourself to a higher standard than everybody else. You're measuring yourself against, you know, yesterday's version, and you're constantly trying to best that, because that's truly the only way to constantly continue to put yourself on a path to self-generating success. Is not comparing yourself to others. It's just trying to best yesterday's effort. I literally started to feel like I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my life in a direction that I shouldn't be. And there's nothing wrong with that course. It wasn't for me, or I felt that I needed to add something else.
Right.
And I didn't know what it was. I felt that maybe I need to be coaching high school kids on part-time or doing something that's benefiting people in some type of way. Because
So I'm gonna back up that notion of the unhappiness coming from I have this skill set, I know how to push myself, I'm not putting those skills to use, taps into, so we had Kenny Florian on the show a few weeks ago, and in doing the research for that show, I realized he had really taught me, sort of accidentally, the meaning of life.
Right.
And for me, I'll sum it up succinctly, and I think it falls right into what you're saying. The meaning of life is to acquire as many skills as you can that have utility.
Absolutely.
And then put those skills to the test.
Absolutely.
Right? And it was seeing him use, because I asked him, like, is fighting a metaphor or is it real? Are you going into the cage, like, to learn something about yourself and to prove something, or do you just actually want to pummel that guy's face? He said, I think it's really metaphorical. It's really my attempt to have these skills and put them to the test. Ask anybody, right? And I've interviewed now about 1,000 people, and when you do the math, it's a lot of people. And patterns start to arise. And the number one pattern when you ask somebody, what do you want out of life? It's happiness. I want to be happy. Okay, awesome. How do you define happiness? Some people really don't know. Right. And I think that if you are truly seeking joy, the thing that you need to do is acquire as many skills as you can, right? To push yourself. How many skills can I acquire that have utility?
Right.
And then I'm going to put their utility to the test so that I can refine them and push them farther. And in doing that, you find that intrinsic motivation you're talking about. There's now a feedback loop to your efforts of, okay, I tried that, and there's a metric now that I can judge it by because it has utility, so I'm judging that particular skill against its particular utility.
Right.
Does that ring true for you?
Absolutely. We use the term sourcing and application, meaning you're sourcing skills and developing skills or sourcing intellect or intuition, and taking that and applying it. We call it through your own filter, making it your own, and then applying it to your future endeavors. It's like running a company, or if you're a coach of a football team, for example. Yeah, we have an awesome offense. We score a lot of points. Yeah, well, you're also giving up 55 a game. You can't stop anybody on third down. We were talking about Bruce about a supplement company that's doing great in sales. You're doing $200 million in sales, but you're losing $250 million a year.
Right.
Like you're putting blinders on to what the reality of your current situation is. And that's kind of where I found myself. And once I was able to get the ego out of the way, I found I didn't like who I was. The more I looked at it, and the more I was able to remove my ego, and the picture got clearer, I became very upset with the lack of the person that I thought I was, because ego and, being a former football player, you tend to think you're a little cooler than you are. You think you've made it a little bit further. And
Can I quote Joe Donnelly again? It's an awesome quote. I actually really like it. You're never as good as people tell you are. You're
Absolutely.
never as bad as people tell you
Absolutely,
you are.
yeah. And I always tell people, it's great to have compliments in life and people tell you, you've done something well, but I go, the minute you hear them, be grateful, say thank you, and dismiss it in the same breath.
Right.
People always say, haters motivate me. That line right there drives me insane. And talk to any psychologist, they'll tell you, if negativity is your motivation, it's impossible to turn your ears off to the good and the bad, or to pick one or the other. Meaning, if you're listening to some third party, if you're listening to their negativity, you're also going to have big ears, we call it, to the compliments and the yes men. And what it does is it starts to gauge on the wavelength of your life, meaning your day will start to rise and fall, what people post on your social media, the negativity or rumors about you, or telling you how great you are. And the minute you're allowing someone else to control your day, or control your motivation, or control your wavelength of life, you set yourself up for failure. And I tell people, I go, you can't listen to that. You can't listen to that, but you also can't listen to the yes men, people telling you how great you are, because you aren't. They don't even know a thing about you. They saw a picture, and all of a sudden they're praising you like, you've cured cancer. You haven't. You just took a picture that someone retouched and put on, social media.
Right.
You have to ignore the externalities, the third parties and their subjective views of you. Otherwise, you are setting yourself up for failure, and it breeds a false sense of ego. We have such a small window of opportunity in this life to self-generate success, and every day we wake up, that window's closing at an alarming rate. And every minute you waste worrying about somebody that has zero real effect on your life, that window comes closer. And one day you're gonna wake up and look back, and that window's gonna have slammed shut on your ass. And you're gonna look back and regret all those minutes wasted worrying about somebody that didn't even know you.
You talk a lot about that concept of the window of opportunity, that opportunity always comes at the worst possible time, that you've got to stay hungry and focused so that when it comes, no matter how fatigued you are, you've built the right habits in your own mind that you'll still grab for that opportunity. So your friends are out partying, it's 110 degrees, no one's watching, and you still run your ass off.
Absolutely.
What drove you to that conclusion?
It's a good question. I was out with a bunch of friends. It was out for a birthday party. A bunch of people were out partying late. And I literally had people come and stayed over at my house late at night. But I was getting up to go. It was 5:30 on a Saturday morning to run, and people were hungover everywhere. I got a call from my agent, and he was like, "You're not going to believe this." He's like, "The Atlanta Falcons just signed you, and you're flying out in like 2 hours."
Whoa!
And he's like, "Are you in shape?" I'm like, "You know that there's no days off." But it was literally that close to me getting signed versus somebody else, and that was when it hit me. Had I not been ready, had I slacked a week, my ass would have been flying home. I would have missed my window of opportunity. And the truth is that in life, opportunity rarely presents itself when we're ready. Everybody wants to believe that we're going to create our own opportunity. And I saw these motivational quotes, and that's fantastic. However, going through life, it's not that really wonderful, nice Disney fairy tale scenario. It's usually going to be when you're at one of your lowest moments. And I really think that, not to be too cliche here, but I really think that's kind of like what life is all about is what decisions are you going to make at your worst moment, your moments of greatest peril? How are you going to fight back? Are you going to fold the tent, or are you going to stand up and when life slaps you in the face, are you going to swing back?
Let's find out. So your story, everything you've just said is going to carry even more weight once we tell this part of your story. Is absolutely incredible. So at your greatest moment of peril, you're in the NFL, the dream of so many kids on the face of this planet. Right. You have a career-ending injury, that thing no one ever wants to hear, and now it's done after a year. You don't even make it to the second season.
Yep.
You go from that, 6 months later, you're working in a warehouse for minimum wage.
I had to work. My father took any money that I made. He's like, "You're not touching that. That's invested." I mean, I literally had, like $12 to my name. The only way I could go to school was to be working these crazy hours in a warehouse. And one of my good friends was like, "We can give you a job, packing boxes and sweeping floors." And I was grateful to have it. And it wasn't until one day I was sitting at lunch with one of the warehouse workers, a guy that had been released from prison. He's on like a prison release work detail. I did like 3 or 5 years. And he's like looking at me like with pity, like embarrassment. He was a really nice guy. And I hadn't even put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, what's wrong? And he's just like, "I feel awful for you." And I was like, "What?" And he's like,
the guy just out of prison, by the way.
Yeah, people thought that I had just like hit rock bottom, that I was a complete failure, and nobody realized that my plan was work my way, through graduate school, and everyone just thought, "Oh, he couldn't cut it in football, and this is what he's reduced to." That was the most humbling moment I can remember. I remember the next day I woke up and I didn't want to go to work. I was so embarrassed. I'm like, this is what people think of me, that I'm some kind of failure. And there wasn't like, social media. I couldn't make a post and be like, "Hey, everyone pay attention to me. I'm not a failure. This is my plan. This is what I'm doing." Eventually, I had to develop the idea of, okay, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You know what it is you're doing. Be self-aware. You're not a failure. Right. It's not very glamorous. But I had a plan and I was working it, and this was just step one of my next plan. And that was where I started to develop I don't say thick skin, if you will, but turning a deaf ear to the negative third parties and their opinions, because otherwise it would have crippled me. Right. Otherwise I would have not gone to work. I would have lost that job. I wouldn't have been able to continue graduate school. And my life would have completely, from that moment, would have completely gone in a different direction. And even more so than that, I would have given into a fear. I would have given into a fear of being judged by others. Let's be honest. We all want to sit here and be like, "I don't care what other people say." We all hear it. We all think it. But it's to what degree can we hear it and dismiss it and move forward? And it's one of the hardest things to do. I guarantee everybody in this audience has had somebody say something bad about them or spread a rumor or whatever. And it's tough. Nobody wants to hear that. I'll tell you right now, if you can force yourself, and it takes practice, it takes time, to learn to dismiss it, and laugh it off in a sense that they don't know me, I'm not going to address it, it doesn't matter. The first time's the hardest, and the next time, and after a while, it becomes secondhand. I'll tell you right now, there's no more freeing moment in your life when you can hear something said about you and completely dismiss it, and your day, the wavelength of your day has not altered completely. It is truly being free from within yourself, and living a life in your own mind, unjudged by others, because life is hard enough. It's going to beat you down at every opportunity. Why add one more thing?
Now, you talked about life doesn't, the next opportunity is coming along, it doesn't work like that. But you actually did create your own opportunity. And look, I get, and I've talked before about mythologizing your own experience, but sometimes I think mythologizing your own experience is empowering. So I'm going to do it to you for a second. Okay. From the outside, it is this beautiful tale of almost truly like a Disney cartoon where you crash, you're starting at the bottom, 1 minute you're riding high, you're this, football hero, and then the next it's minimum wage guy in a warehouse, but a guy in a warehouse with a dream, right? And he understands now, I can't listen to what other people say, I really have to start garnering new skills, I'm going to graduate school, I'm gonna learn what I need to learn about business so that I can go on and build an empire. And the irony is you go on to actually build that empire. So literally from nothing, from the absolute ashes of despair, you rise up and show people that, yes, you do create your own opportunity, and yes, it's about being ready and prepared for that opportunity that presents itself. I get that, and of course, there's always a certain amount of luck in any great story.
Absolutely,
but
100%.
If you're not ready when that phone call comes in, and if you're trying to run the 40-yard sprints and you're vomiting because you're hungover from last night, like you were prepared when opportunity knocked.
Right.
And I think it's important for them. I know you don't like to recognize some of your own successes, but
he's definitely being way more gracious with his compliments than I deserve. That's for sure.
Simply condensing the timeline a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think to powerful effect for the people here. So help us understand, because I think looking back at that person in the warehouse, defeated, has to rebuild his mind. I have a gut instinct that the gym was something that you used to rebuild your mind. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. Those 90 minutes a day or whatever was literally you couldn't afford to go to therapy or see a psychologist to talk about my problems and lay on someone's couch. So literally those 90 minutes, I would go in and I would work out nonstop. It wasn't strategic like before. I was literally trying to punish myself in a minute because I had to get all the frustration and of life and everything coming down on me, and that was like my therapy session. And
what did that do to your mind to punish yourself like that?
Well, in one way it was a release, but in another sense it was I call it building confidence and humility at the same time, because if people had seen you bench 400 or 500 pounds, but literally people would walk by me in the gym and I'd be towards the middle end of my workout. And because I was going nonstop, I was literally that guy, like doing push-ups on his knees and falling on his face. And so you think people are looking at him, they're like, boy, he really has hit rock bottom. He literally can't even work out anymore. Like, do we need to like offer an intervention?
Right.
Like, here's like $5. and talk to my uncle who's a psychologist. Yeah, like literally, I mean, I got looks from people like, wow, probably thought I was just some kind of animal. But the point is that I saw that, and I saw people look at me funny, and it amused me. And I no longer was starting to care what people thought. And I continued to up the level, and I continued to punish myself and work harder. I wouldn't even take time to drink water or to rest. And it started making me like ridiculous shape. And so guys in the gym would see that, and one guy asked to work out with me, and then two, and before you know, I literally had like an entourage of like 7 guys, like couldn't even do a push-up on their knees, and everybody's sweating, and it was like controlled chaos with a bunch of people that didn't look like they know what they were doing, but everybody was loving the style of training. I had, one friend, he was like, 45 years old, about 60 pounds overweight, and he used to be in good shape. And when we started, he literally couldn't make it through like 15 minutes. And after like 45 days, he dropped like 50 pounds.
Wow.
He had to quit smoking because he didn't have the lung capacity to even get through the workouts.
Wow.
And he was like doing no cardio. I mean, it saved his marriage, completely changed everything going forward.
All right, tell me why, because
Well, I mean, think about it. He was
important.
overweight. He was smoking cigarettes and drinking.
But none of that really matters. There was something that matters deeply.
Well, he was unhappy with himself.
There you go.
When you're unhappy with yourself.
So why did the gym change that?
Well, what it is that he started to push himself. Addressing his own insecurities and having to force himself to quit smoking just so he could survive like Joe's like Tuesday and Thursday workouts. Right. Not drinking, at night because he knew he was gonna be throwing up at 6 a.m. the next morning. So he started to cross these little hurdles, and it started to build self-confidence. And then he started to see the change in the mirror. And his brother, who owned the business that they were in, who was a very good friend of mine, said he's more attentive at work. He's contributing. Their business started to grow. They opened up, they had their retail chains opened up new stores.
Wow!
And so it had it's like dropping the pebble in the water and the ripple effect. It had a ripple effect in his life and everybody else's. His son, a high school football player who ended up becoming one of my training partners, I kind of mentored the kid. He said to me one day, I was driving him home, and he's like, my dad's never been this involved in our lives. And
there's no glamour in rolling around and vomiting into the trash can, and you can't do a push-up. So the humility comes from that. And it's so powerful when it's combined with somebody who you see growing and blossoming as a human being. And so this is something that I've talked to these guys a lot about. At the end of the day, for me, it's all about getting to the mind. I don't care what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Business for me is about getting to the mind. It's about framework happiness, which we sort of already talked about earlier. Going to the gym is about framework happiness. None of it, I don't find going to the gym intrinsically interesting. I don't like the gym at all. Right. I don't get that runner's high or anything like that. For me, it's literally like being tortured. But when I didn't, so I used to be heavy, and then I lost weight and was dweeby, and then finally found the gym and started adding muscle mass. And for me, I knew from the beginning, I'm doing this to affect my mind, not my body.
Right.
And I think there's two ways to get at the mind. One, you can educate it, read, meet people like you that just have nuggets of wisdom. And then, and then two is to go through the body. And the body is a profound way to shape the mind, because to show up every day already, you're having to deal with habits and forming habits, and then to lift the weight and to push past that point where it's not fun anymore, it hurts, this sucks, but you do it. And here's the important part, and here's what I think you were talking about with your friend. So you have low self-esteem, you feel badly about yourself because you believe certain things about yourself. I'm too weak to quit smoking,
Absolutely.
Right? Or I would have. I'm too weak to show up at the gym every day. I'm too weak to train with Joe Donnelly. I'm too weak to lift this certain weight. As you start chipping those away, it's real. And that's why I say the most important thing for people is the meaning of life. Acquire as many skills as you can that have utility, and then test that utility. And in the testing of that utility is where your self-esteem is born. Those are the bricks with which you build your life. And getting into the gym and having this very visceral, very immediate, it's right there. You can't do it yesterday, you can do it today, and I'm a fundamentally different human being, because yesterday I could not curl a 50-pound weight, and today I can. So, and it starts to really play in your mind, because you realize, I controlled that, right? I showed up, I stopped smoking, I'm not too weak to train out with Joe Donnelly, I'm gonna show up every day and I'm gonna put in the work, and it starts to necessarily change your internal dialogue.
Absolutely.
And that internal dialogue that people have about themselves in their own head, I think really shapes where they go.
Well, think about it. We're assessing what we're seeing and everything, and that is where the majority of our dialogue comes. Very rarely do we, get the opportunity to sit down like this and really vocalize everything that's going on, everything that we're thinking about. So it's really important, managing your expectations, managing your thoughts, and understanding what it is that's going on in your mind, and where your thoughts are taking you. A lot of times we take something negative that happens in our day, and we let it spiral out of control, and we impress upon it, and before long, it's completely taken us in a different direction and ruined the course of our day, just because we weren't able to manage our thoughts. But to let it become crippling in your life to the point where it's changing the course of your days, and we've all gone through it. We've all had horrible things happen in our lives where we go through a period of depression. You can step back and self-assess and be cognizant of, yes, okay, this is where I am. I understand what's affecting me. It's not like you can turn it off, but I have to be aware of what's going on. And the more you're self-aware, the better you're going to be able to address that situation. I always use the metaphor of working out is not life. To me, it's not about the body. It's completely about the mind. What I do every day, the fact that it makes me mentally stronger, the fact that I literally push myself to the point of being physically ill. When you do that, when you're starting your day at 4:30 in the morning, whatever, do that, the rest of your day, no matter what happens, is a breeze. You've tackled the hardest part of your day. No matter what goes on, you have the confidence and you have the wherewithal, the tool belt, if you will, to be able to attack. Sometimes it's just showing up and being able to push yourself a little bit more than yesterday. I call it finding your hard. When you find your hard every day, man, life is a lot better. Because what happens is you're either the CEO of your life or you're going to be someone else. You're going to be life's employee. And every day, if you wake up and you don't take control of your day and you don't dominate the day as best you can start to finish, life is going to own you. If you're waking up with a negative attitude, you have to be able to step back and self-assess. Why am I in a bad mood? And you have to work from that minute forward to build that tool in your belt, if you will, to be able to assess it, address it, apply it, if you will, and then move forward. If you can do that, I'll tell you, life gets exponentially easier and easier and easier every day. And before you know it, you're working with greater efficiency, more confidence, more determination, and you've set yourself on a path to truly self-generate success. But more importantly, you're happy. I probably work, 110 hours a week, but it's not working.
Is that all?
I have, ever since you told me.
Everybody's got to take time off.
You took one vacation in 2014, so I backed off a little. I judge my barometer of how hard I work by Tom, So I see he went out to dinner and he went on vacation for 2 days.
Right, yeah.
I can slack off now.
All right, I have to back you up. Do you know what a Quake book is?
No.
Okay, a Quake book is a book that hits you so hard it shakes your foundation, right? Yep. So, been many of those in my life.
Yep.
I think there are Quake moments, and I just had one when you were going, and you went by it so fast as if it wasn't the most profound thing that I will hear today. So we're going to rewind.
Okay.
You can either be the CEO of your life or life's employee.
Right.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you for myself, I spent decades as an employee of my own life.
Myself as
was
well.
not fun, depressing, dark place. And then all of my success, all of it, is tied to what I call the red pill moment in the Matrix, where some bit of knowledge wakes you up and you realize the way the world really works, which for me was a realization that I say it's all my fault. That freaks people out. I just mean it's in my control. So if something didn't go my way, then I did something wrong. I can change that, do something right, and then ultimately get what I want. Right. That is awesome. So thank you. That truly will become... I can't take
credit for it. I read it in a book. Yeah, I can't.
Awesome, but you brought it to me and you get all the credit for that, because that really is something I will remember for a very long time. This is one of those things, if you're watching, you can test me, come up to me on the street. What was that Quake moment in the Joe Donnelly interview? I promise you, it will be right there for me. That was big, and I hope everybody that it hit you as hard as it hit me, that is your daily question to yourself.
If you're waking up every day and you're not taking steps to be the CEO of your own life and managing your day and running your own life, you're going to be an employee. It's going to run you back, and it will. And there's days I've woken up and gone through the motions, and sure as death and taxes, something comes up, and because I wasn't in the right mindset, it took control. It ran my day.
I've got a quote from you that I want to read that I think will explain why so few people actually heed that advice, and what waits for you on the other side if you do. Everything you want in life is on the other side of fear. Fear will drive us in one of two directions. It will either drive us to our knees in crippling submission, or it will drive us to endure against all odds. Great quote, man. I really, really love that. That was one of those things as I was going through look, we stalked you online. We found everything we could. So people are super crippled by fear, and I don't think they understand that time is the wood that's thrown on that fire. Yep. But most importantly, I don't think they understand what waits on the other side. And that's the part that makes me really sad, right? So you see somebody crippled by fear and you think, okay, I've been there, I know what that's like. But they haven't been where I'm going, right? And I don't want to be arrogant and say where I am, because this is, you and I both see success very much the same. It's that J.J. Watt quote.
Absolutely.
Success isn't owned, it's leased, and rent is due every day.
Every day.
That is so powerful, and thank you. What you wrote in your Instagram post, in addition to that, was amazing.
I appreciate
loved
you sharing it. Thank you.
But people don't see the beauty of what you can do as you start to make the number one muscle that you work, your mind, right? And start testing those limits and pushing to see where you can go. Because I'll get really specific now. So you guys know, you've heard me talk about it. How many skills can I acquire that have utility, and test that utility? That's what Quest is. Quest was just my partners and I saying, I'm no longer going to chase money. It's not interesting. You will end up empty. It's a sad just fact. But you can, oddly enough, make even more money once you say, what I'm going to chase is the acquisition of skills doing something that I love. And then I'm going to put those skills to the test, and you get to see how far you can go. And that that in and of itself, even when you lose, right? And that was the edict that Ron, Mike, and I agreed on in a private moment back at our old company, that we would never again do something that we didn't enjoy, even if we were losing. And that was the important part, right? Even if we're losing, like, I'm gonna have fun, even if we're losing.
Right.
And that, I think, takes us to the next part of your career, which is you can't watch you can't listen to you can't read an article you've been interviewed in, nothing, without understanding your absolute obsession with helping other people. What drives that?
It's good, very good question. I'm not gonna sit here and be like I'm Tony Robbins or anything. If I can talk to someone for 5 minutes, I can change maybe their mindset 2 degrees and put them on a different course, or get them to look at something differently, and it's gonna help them go forward. Then I've done my job. That is more fulfilling than the previous life that I was living.
Now, is that fulfilling because you know that they're marching now towards something that's more beautiful in their life, that it will make them happier?
The most fulfilling thing is sit down and talk to somebody, or do a passing conversation, or make a post that's going to change them. I'll tell you right now, I don't ever want or care for a compliment to say something like, oh, you looked great on the cover of that magazine, or your physique is awesome, or you're strong. Okay, I'm grateful for the compliment, but I immediately forget about it.
Right.
But when someone can come up to you in an airport or say, hey man, you wrote something that impacted my life, now I'm listening. Tell me how it impacted your life, and what are you doing moving forward? That's what I want to hear. That's the only compliment I care to hear. Because I know you took something that I wrote or something that I said and you're applying it to your own life, and it's made a change, and that's what it's all about. But I'll tell you right now, it becomes contagious. When you help one person, or you change one person's mind, or even just alter their thought, it becomes contagious. You want to do it over and over. So what I found myself is, as I became in this fitness journey, staying up all night, reading books, watching YouTube videos, trying to garner as much information I could to be educated on subject matters, it's going to get them to go in a different direction that might help them become more successful.
It's incredible, man. And the amount of time that you dedicate to helping other people is really incredible. And I know you've got a great quote about when the sun sets on the day, so it sets on the success of that day.
Yep.
But like you recognize the echo that has in people's lives, so do I. Am tremendously grateful that someone of your caliber shares that with people. From the Quake moment earlier to everything that I've learned from spending time with you and reading about you, it really is my pleasure and truly our honor to have you on this show. We cannot thank you enough for taking the time to be here with us.
I'm equally grateful, and I appreciate the opportunity. It really does mean a lot to me, and I take it with tremendous pride and responsibility. So thank you very much.
Wow, thanks for being with us. Guys, this is a weekly show. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so there. And if you're not following this guy on social media, you are committing emotional suicide. It is at Joe Donnelly Fit. He is going to lead you to the promised land, I promise. So until next week, we will see you then. Take care.
Coming up next, Inside Questions.
Do you look for a scoreboard, place to place that you go to in life when you're no longer, on a team playing sports? And is it healthy to always have a scoreboard?
So that's a really excellent question. When you're truly intrinsically motivated, you've developed a scoreboard in your mind that no one else can see, that isn't an end state. When you have an achievement in your life or make a mini success, don't live in the past. Otherwise, your scoreboard, you're gonna lose.